Welcome to the Maha Media Hub, and welcome to the Maha Revolution. I'm Tony Lyons, president of Maha Action. First, we're going to hear from one of the hardest working and most loyal people to the president, to Secretary Kennedy, and to all of us. And her name is Stephanie Spear. And she's live from the road where she's fighting to make America healthy with Bobby Kennedy, telling the truth, delivering gold standard science, radical transparency, and epic wins in state after state. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank
Stephanie,
you,
we can't quite hear
Tony.
you.
There we go. Hey,
Perfect.
can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Yep, we're on the road. We're actually going to be traveling every day of August. And right now we are in, where are we? We're in Lexington, Kentucky. We were in North Carolina and then Virginia the day before. But I did want to join you guys. There's many times I've been asked to jump on and we'll be on the road and I always say no. And it's because we're always rushed and we are again today. But actually, Secretary Kennedy is doing an interview right now with Dr. Mark Siegel. We just made a big announcement on organ procurement. I'm sure all of you will be hearing about that soon. But I wanted to come on today to just talk about how last week we launched the Real Food Show, a new cooking series that makes healthy, affordable cooking simple and accessible for every American. We're inviting renowned chefs to cook alongside Secretary Kennedy and inspire millions of families to prepare delicious, nutritious meals with everyday ingredients, all aligned with our dietary guidelines. The Real Food Show is more than a cooking show. It empowers Americans to make healthy, practical, approachable, and affordable meals at home. And our premiere episode featured Chef Andrew Gruel. I'm hoping all of you have already seen it and shared it with all of your friends and family. Every one of our episodes combines simple, everyday recipes with the science behind them. And it turns our dietary guidelines into practical meals families can make at home. The Real Food Show puts that message into action. And we all know that the kitchen does more than just produce meals. It brings families together, teaches children lifelong healthy habits, and strengthens communities. Cooking at home reconnects us with our food, our health, and one another. As Secretary Kennedy has emphasized so many times, restoring the tradition of preparing and sharing meals with families and friends is one of the simplest ways to rebuild connections, strengthen communities, improve our nation's health. The Real Food Show advances that vision by making home cooking achievable, enjoyable, and accessible to every American. So please join us, pick up a spatula, gather around the table, and discover how cooking with real food can help us make America healthy again. Thanks to the courage of President Trump and the leadership of Secretary Kennedy, we've delivered on the most sweeping public health reforms in modern history to address the chronic disease epidemic and make America healthy again. What we're doing is making real impact. The market is changing. Since the day Bobby Kennedy endorsed President Trump, the S&P is up 33%. The index of major ultra-processed food companies is down 24%. That is remarkable. Real food also outsold highly processed food by 7% between June 2025 and June 2026. So what we are doing is working. Thank you to everyone at Maha Action and the entire Maha movement. We are winning. So please keep following Secretary Kennedy on our journey as he reforms HHS and share our wins with everyone. Thanks so much, Tony.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Yeah, and it is a fact that, food is medicine, and cooking your own real food at home is the best, the most affordable, the most effective way to be healthy. So it's just amazing that this show is coming out, and this show is going to make it easy for everybody to lead healthier lives. So thanks for doing it. Thanks for being on the road, and thanks for just doing an amazing job day after day.
All right, you got it, Tony. And thanks to everyone out there. Please make sure if you haven't seen our first episode that you check it out and then share it with everyone. It has been remarkable to see the response. Literally, people have been coming out of the woodworks just sharing how much they think it's such a great idea. I mean, there's whether you're red or blue or purple, everyone loves healthy, real food. And so please make sure you share it with everyone.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Good to see you, Tony.
Okay, so for a generation now, we've been told the same two words about every single vaccine in America. We've been told that they're safe and they're effective, and that's it. We're told that just time after time. You say it enough times, it stops sounding like a claim and it starts sounding like a fact. And we've been told something else too, that it's perfectly reasonable for the companies that make these products to have absolute liability protection. If one of their products injures your child, you have nowhere to turn, no recourse, no one to hold accountable. We in the MAHA movement know that that just isn't right. No product should be granted liability protection by our government. A vaccine is just a product, like any other product, and it has to be tested and retested and retested. And when a product harms somebody in this country, the people it harms have to have recourse. That's not radical. That's not anti-anything. That's just the most basic principle of a fair and honest society. So vaccines were described as unavoidably unsafe in congressional hearings and later in arguments before the Supreme Court. Those are their words, not mine. And for the first time in my lifetime, we have a president and an HHS secretary willing to take those statements seriously, willing to do the hard research, ask the tough questions that nobody in power it leads. Because only when we have honest science can we give Americans what they've been denied for decades: true informed consent and safer vaccination practices built on real data instead of marketing slogans. As all of you know, Dr. Anthony Fauci used to say that he represented science. He said that time after time during the pandemic. He said, "I am the science." But I'll tell you who really represents science. It's Dr. Rand Paul, Senator and Dr. Rand Paul. He represents science because he's curious, because he questions authority, because he understands that the science is never settled, and that the moment you declare it's settled, you've stopped doing science altogether. And he's willing to follow the evidence wherever it takes him. And that's exactly what a real scientist does. It's what a real doctor does. And it's what we should demand from every single official who claims to serve the public. This week, Senator Paul showed us what real science and real leadership looks like. That dogged, bulldog determination to get to the truth and to let the American people hear it. He released more than 1,000 pages. More than 1,000 pages of Anthony Fauci's own diaries. And, you know, that's what we've been waiting for such a long time. We've been waiting for the truth. And Dr. Fauci's own diaries show just a level of corruption that is beyond anything we've seen in the past. And nevertheless, he received a preemptive pardon handed out on Biden's way out the door. So this may keep Dr. Fauci from being prosecuted for many things that I believe are crimes against humanity. But the truth is finally coming out, and the American public is allowed to hear that truth in his own words. And once the American public sees the truth, there's no unseeing it. There's no putting it back in the box. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. The president has asked Secretary Kennedy to take a serious, honest look at any possible link between vaccines and autism. It's a straightforward question. Study it, follow the data, give me an answer. And the reaction from the media, it was immediate. It shows who they're working for. Dana Bash went on the air and said, in effect, this is studied. It's been closed. It's settled. The science is settled. And there it is again, that phrase. So let me say this as plainly as I can possibly say it. MAHA believes the science is never settled. We know it's never settled. It wasn't settled with thalidomide. It wasn't settled with opioids. It wasn't settled on 100 different things that the experts once swore and told us were safe. The single most anti-scientific sentence in the English language is that the science is settled. Because the entire history of science is the story of settled ideas being overturned by people who are brave enough to question the status quo. Parents have been reporting that their own children, that what they've seen is that children have become autistic, that they've totally changed right after their vaccinations. And they deserve to have their concerns taken seriously, not waved away by a cable news anchor. So if the answer is really so obvious, then a rigorous, transparent study will simply confirm that, and that will help build trust. No honest scientist should ever be afraid of that. The only people who are afraid of that kind of research are the people who don't like where it might lead, the people who will lose money because of where it leads. So trust has been breached and broken between big pharma companies, the government, and the American people. We were lied to, we were propagandized at scale, and those brave enough to question, those who stood up and refused to obey, refused to be told what to do, what to think, what to read, or what to put in their bodies. They were vilified, shunned, ostracized, censored, deplatformed. They lost their jobs. They lost their medical licenses. Their reputations were destroyed. They were accused of disseminating misinformation, of being anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theorists. And millions of people suffered some level of vaccine injury. That's just a fact. So even though people deny it, it is a fact. And Dr. Fauci controlled the COVID narrative, the COVID countermeasures, and he gloated publicly in his diary about all the power that he had, all the control that he had. So after such a dark historical period like this, people need the truth, and they need an opportunity to be heard, and they need some kind of reconciliation. And, the fact is that a lot of people need compensation. Investigating Fauci, holding him in contempt for refusing to answer reasonable questions in front of Congress, and eventually prosecuting him for crimes that I think are crimes against humanity, that'll help rebuild trust. But compensating people who lost their livelihoods or suffered vaccine injury will also go a long way toward rebuilding that trust. In Japan, for example, 87% of vaccine-injured people receive compensation. In Thailand, it's 82%. Even in Canada, and I'm no big fan of Canada, 22% are compensated. Guess what the number is in the United States? Fewer than 1% receive any compensation. And then there's just a ridiculous cap on what that compensation is. So that doesn't inspire confidence, and it doesn't encourage trust. So that's what today's Media Hub is about. We'll be joined by doctors, lawyers, scientists, journalists, activists, and legislators, people who've been at the forefront of exposing the potential harms of vaccines and fighting for informed consent and medical freedom, often at enormous personal cost. So you're going to hear from Del Bigtree, one of the great warriors of and the CEO of Informed Consent Action Network. Mary Holland, the incredible CEO of Children's Health Defense. Mark Gordon, president of MAHA Institute, the incredible MAHA Institute. Dr. Brian Hooker, chief scientific officer at Children's Health Defense. Physician and author Dr. Jeff Bark. Pediatrician and author Dr. Liz Mumper. Epidemiologist Nick Hulsher. And Senator and Dr. Rand Paul of Kentucky, the man who's been leading the charge this week and who's been relentless in pursuing the truth about Dr. Anthony Fauci and gain-of-function research and the task of holding the powerful accountable under oath. But first, we're joined by Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona. And he isn't just talking about these ideas. Like a lot of people, he's building them into the agenda of his campaign for governor of Arizona. He plans to make Arizona healthy again in practical ways by ending medical mandates, protecting vaccine freedom, making sure parents actually get the information that they need to make good decisions about immunizations and exemptions so that they can choose what's right for their own children. And then he's been working to ban dangerous gain of function research in his state, getting soda and junk food out of SNAP purchases and out of schools, bringing nutrition and into medical schools and into school lunches, and standing up a Make America Healthy Again advisory council in Arizona to carry it all forward. And this is exactly what it looks like when the movement goes from ideas into government policy and law. Congressman Biggs, welcome to the Maha Media Hub. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for having me. Before the COVID situation took place, and I don't even call it a pandemic. Let's just call it what it was. It was a terrible thing that happened, and was a disease that spread out. But if you go before that, I'm thinking, as I was listening to you speak, I was thinking back to when my wife and I were making decisions for our children, whether we should have them vaccinated. And we were castigated and ridiculed because we started saying, our latter children were said, we're not going to have them vaccinated because we'd studied it. And then when we had some of our grandchildren and our children were having kids, literally pediatricians firing my kids as patients because they weren't going to let their kids be vaccinated. So we need to empower parents, because if the Maha movement is about nothing else, it is about allowing individuals to make healthy choices for themselves with informed consent and with knowledge. And that's really one of the main things that I think is so important. And I'm glad you're having Senator Paul on. So Rand and I, in April of 2020, very early on in the COVID incidents, we wrote an op-ed that was published by a major periodical where we actually called into question the so-called settled science. And we talked about everything from masks to this fraudulent social distancing thing. All of that stuff shows you when you allow an individual or people not to be informed, as our whole country wasn't. We were misled on virtually everything. I remember doing a TV show, and the hostess asked me why I thought masks didn't work. I said, I've got over 100 studies on my desk that show that masks don't work. And then she took me off the show, and I didn't go back on for months. And then when I went back on, we were talking about social distancing. I said, I've got another 40 studies on my desk showing how social distancing isn't working. When you call science settled, you're basically going back to no longer a heliocentric type of science. You're doing something else. You are truly the Luddite. It is those of us who are questioning, I think, that actually allows science to progress and develop us and get to the truth. And so I'm excited about the Maha movement. I'm excited what you guys do. And I'm glad you kind of mentioned my platform, because I want parents to have choices. I want college students to be able to have medical freedom and make those choices. I don't want people to be discriminated against. Just so you know, in Arizona, almost 50% of all restaurants and eating establishments went out of business because of the shutdown, the economic shutdown that took place in my home state. These are the consequences that happen when you don't follow real science, if you're busy in panic mode. So that's where I am. And I'll just say just some other personal things that I think are so important as we talk about food. One thing, some of the things that Bobby Kennedy is doing, I think that are so important, is he's actually getting us back. And the conversation is thinking about preventative health, as opposed to waiting until someone is very, very ill and you're trying to manage that illness. How about if we manage the illness from or our health from the front side, and that is nutrition. And I'm grateful for his leadership on that, and I'm grateful for your guys' leadership on that, because if nothing would be better for government than for individuals to take care of themselves, have accountability for themselves, and be able to make the choices on healthcare uh, informed decisions themselves. And so I'm grateful to be here with you, and thanks to all of you. And let's continue the great work of MAHA.
Thank you so much, and thanks for coming on, and thanks for recognizing the importance of medical freedom and of choice, and of the idea that real food, that healthy food, and that real science, that's what's going to give us better health outcomes, and that, like you said, it's never settled. We're always exploring, we're always questioning authority. So great to have you on, and hope that you will come on many times.
Thanks, Tony. Good to be with you.
So Andy Biggs is one of the longest and most consistent pro-MAHA people. Has one of the best records of any candidates in the 2026 races. And he introduced the Right to Try Act in his first week in Congress, and later watched President Trump sign it into law in 2018. So he's been at this for a long time. And he championed the Patient Choice and Scope of Practice Reform Act. He fought COVID mandates and mask requirements from day one. And he pushed for patient access to hydrochloroquine. Got it right. Hydroxychloroquine. God, none of those are right, but you guys know what I mean. We at the MAHA Action are just so proud to endorse Andy Biggs for governor of Arizona. And we're certain that he's going to bring the same kind of commitment to health freedom to make his state healthy. So, please follow him, vote for him, and let's all help him get elected. Next up, we have Dr. Jeff Bark. And Jeff Bark is a board-certified family physician with more than 30 years of experience in primary care and integrative medicine. He's a fierce constitutionalist. He's been harassed and banned when he spoke out in March of 2020. And, in the opposition to the mainstream narrative and oppressive government measures. And beyond clinical practice, Dr. Bark is an author, a speaker, a podcast host, and he's focused on preventative medicine, informed consent, and of course, medical freedom. Thanks so much, Dr. Bark, for coming on.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you and the MAHA Action Group. What an honor to be part of this group. The speakers that are on are fantastic. Many of whom, if they were in the room with me, I'd ask for their autographs and I'd take a selfie with them. So it's really great to be with you and have this opportunity. I'm actually a practicing physician. I'm sitting in my office as we speak. I actually have a patient here with me who's listening to this. We were reviewing her labs a few minutes ago. I think what's really important is that there is a hunger out there. There is a hunger out there for real medicine, for truth, for informed consent. I am so proud to have written that book, and in part, Tony, with your help, Unavoidably Unsafe, with my co-author, Ed Geer. This is all about trying to bring truth to patients. I routinely, on my social media, RX for Liberty, spend time reading package inserts of either vaccines or drugs. I'm often called a quack. I'm often called an anti-vaxxer. The reality is I'm neither. I tell patients, I don't care whether you get vaccinated or not, as long as you have informed consent. And let's read the package insert together. Let's look at what the ingredients are in the product. Many of these ingredients, if I gave them to a kid in a spoon, I'd get arrested for child abuse. Yet we stick them directly into the bloodstream through the muscle. Many of these ingredients are potentially toxic, whether it's aluminum or traces of formaldehyde or polysorbate 80 or antibiotics that are contained or animal proteins that are in these vaccines. I'm not anti-vax, but I want patients to understand the reality of the product. What are the studies that brought the product to market? To understand that not a single childhood vaccine was ever tested, placebo randomized control trials. I want them to know, as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to get a tattoo, section 13.1 in every single package insert that says this product was not tested to see if it causes cancer or can interfere with reproductive health. Yet the American Academy of Pediatrics wants us to inject these drugs into patients in newborns, hepatitis B, 2 days old, even vitamin K. Listen, get these vaccines if you want to get them, but only after you received informed consent. We would never tolerate a lack of informed consent with other medical procedures that we do. Yet when we get vaccinations, that's exactly what happens. I accompanied a friend of mine to CVS to pick up some eye drops for some conjunctivitis. There were signs everywhere. Get updated on the latest COVID booster. Get updated on the MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. There's some increase in measles going around. Never mind that you can't actually get a measles vaccination. It only comes in combination, and that the R component of the MMR, rubella, was grown in aborted fetal cell lines. So regardless of your opinion on abortion and whether it's appropriate, you should know. Parents should know. The public should know. And who would drive a car if you knew that the manufacturer was immune from liability if the airbag suddenly opened up on the freeway while you were driving? Yet that is exactly the case with vaccinations. There is no other consumer-facing product that has immunity to liability. It'd be like, okay, if your airbag opens up, the result is you have to go to airbag court. Well, that's ridiculous. But that's the way it is now with vaccines. You get injured, you get to go to vaccine court. It's not even real court. You have a master who oversees the court. And if you're awarded money, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. You can't talk about it. You can't tell anybody you went to court. I've got a patient that lost a child following a vaccination. She was awarded the maximum award allowable, $250,000. I begged her to allow me to interview her and to go public, but she couldn't because of this non-disclosure agreement. So Tony, thank you so much for all the work you do, for allowing me this platform to speak for a few minutes. And for everybody else who is going to speak next, thank you for the work that you do. Let's keep fighting the fight and educating the public.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And, you know, it's so clear that anti-vax is just a pharmaceutical company talking point. You know, we need to be able to talk about everything with our doctors. We need to be able to investigate things. We need to be able to have real information before we consent. You know, because we all want to do the best we can possibly do for our children. And no, we're not going to trust big pharmaceutical companies. We know that they are the most they have been indicted more. They have been held criminally liable more than any series of companies in the country. So no, we don't trust them. We trust ourselves and our own doctors and our own research and our own knowledge of our own children. So, you know, thanks for being one of the doctors who's been open to this all through COVID, you know, all through your career. It's so important. It's been so rare. And fortunately, it's getting to be just a bit more common. So thank you for being one of the leaders.
Thank you, Tony. Honored to be with you.
Next up, we have Mary Holland, and she's the CEO of the incredible nonprofit Children's Health Defense. She's a prolific author, a former professor at NYU School of Law, and she's been advocating for protecting children's health for about 30 years now. And she's been involved in just such important lawsuits. And it's just a warrior out there, you know, like Stephanie Spear on the road, in courtrooms all around the country, trying to do the best she can to counteract all of the terrible things that have happened over the last generation that have harmed our children. So thank you, Mary, for coming on.
Tony, thank you. And an honor to be with you and all the people here. So autism is at the heart of the MAHA movement. You and I both know that families that have been affected by autism and by the steep escalation in the numbers of children diagnosed with autism has really been one of the mobilizing forces. And we're very fortunate that President Trump and Secretary Kennedy have really taken this more seriously than any previous president or than any previous Secretary of Health. Now, you mentioned at the beginning, and Jeff Barkey just mentioned the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. This is an anathema. This is an outrage to the American public. The idea that somebody can be injured or die from a vaccine and you can't go to civil court. You cannot go and plead your case to a jury of your peers and get compensated with a remedy for what happened to you. That was nullified by Congress in 1986, and it needs to be reversed. It needs to be nullified. But and it's very clear, I, with other autism parents back in 2012, published a paper in the PACE Environmental Law Review. We did an analysis of about 180 cases in the vaccine injury compensation program that they created under this law. And it is obvious that vaccines cause autism. The characteristics are there. The regression is there. It is as plain as the nose on your face that vaccines can cause autism. They're not the only cause. I know plenty of families with unvaccinated children who have autism, but the driving force of the autism epidemic has unquestionably been vaccines. And to his great credit, President Trump, long before he ran for president, put on his Twitter feed, too many vaccines too soon. Is there a problem? Why is the rate of autism going up? And Secretary Kennedy has been involved in this fight for at least 20 years. He was in the rally to green our vaccines. He facilitated at PACE some of the research that we did towards that paper. He partnered with parents like Lynn Redwood, Sarah Bridges, Laura Bono, Luke Conti, John Gilmore, to really take seriously that something is horrifically wrong. There's no such thing as a genetic epidemic. We have to look at environmental causes, and we obviously have to look at vaccines that are given at the same time that children often regress into autism. So I think it's to President Trump's credit that he is really highlighting this issue, that he talked about having Secretary Kennedy do more, that he talked about Tylenol as being a cofactor. I think what we know is any of these medical interventions early in childhood can be essentially kind of gateways to diagnoses of asthma, autism, ADHD, diabetes, allergies, other autoimmune conditions. As Bobby Kennedy used to say in the civilian context, a sick child is pharma's best customer. A customer for life is exactly what an industry wants. So I think NIH, we saw Dr. Fauci on full display last week. We've seen the scientific suppression. We've seen how the pharmaceutical industry has basically held the regulators captive. We're now at 1 in 31 children in this country at age 8, 1 in 12 and a half boys in California. It's an outrage. We deserve better. I'm grateful for the MAHA movement, and we need to undo the 86 Act. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary. You know, that was really great. And it's just it's so beautiful, and it's been so rare to have somebody tell the truth, because telling the truth in this country, in this area, has just become a revolutionary act that, you know, you become vilified for it. You get hit pieces written on you for it. So it's been so hard to tell the truth. And I'm just so grateful for you and for all the people who come on this show to tell the truth, you know, to tell their best view of what the truth is now and to present real science. And that really has health outcomes, and the terrible health outcomes that we've had in this country over the last generation come from people failing to tell the truth, so that people don't know what the best choices they can make for their children are. And so that's such an important point. And that answers the question of how it's possible that we spend 3 times the money as any of the other 30 industrialized countries and get such horrible outcomes, the worst of the 30 industrialized countries. So thank you, Mary. You're just doing a spectacular job, and I just love to hear you talk. Next up, we have Senator Rand Paul, and, you know, he's our very own MAHA hero. He's, you know, finally holding Fauci accountable in front of the American people on the national stage. So he's been just an incredible fighter for free speech, medical freedom, real science that serves the public interest, not the private interest. and he's been a warrior against that kind of corrupt science. But, what he's done with Fauci is such an epic moment, just such a moment that we should celebrate, because it was so hard to get here, because we had the most powerful health official in the world telling us lies every day for months after month after month. And now Senator Rand Paul worked hard to make him accountable and to say in front of the American public, this is what happened. So, Senator Paul, thank you so much for all that you've done, and thanks for coming on again.
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be with you guys. As you know, we did have a big week last week. We finally, under duress, were able to bring Anthony Fauci in. We had negotiated for months to try to get information from him. We'd get a slow trickle, and then it would come to an end. More negotiation, slow trickle, come to an end. He had agreed to come in voluntarily for a deposition, and then they went up until like the day before the agreement, and they said, no, he's not coming in. So finally, we lost patience, and we sent him a subpoena. He did arrive, but then, as people saw, he decided to plead the fifth. But we've been able to find an extraordinary amount of documents, really thanks to Bobby Kennedy and others in the Trump administration, but primarily Secretary Kennedy, who wanted to get to the truth and allowed us to dig deeper and deeper until we found the truth. And what we found is that we looked into Anthony Fauci's private musings. They seem to contradict everything he was saying in public. There were two things from January of 2020 that we found out that he was thinking and saying, but was saying completely the opposite, really, during the rest of the pandemic. The first one that I think is incredibly important is, I believe this is in an email exchange where he says, we are worried about the structure of the virus because it looks manipulated. It looks like it's been manipulated in a lab. And we're particularly concerned about that because we know they do gain-of-function research in this lab in Wuhan. So if he knew they were doing research there, why in the world would he be funding? Even if he was technically saying, oh, we didn't fund that research, they were doing this without our knowledge, it still is incredibly sloppy and incredibly dangerous to be funding research where they're doing gain-of-function research. So I do believe he knew it all along and suspected it from the very moment. But then immediately in public, these same scientists who were saying in private that it looked manipulated immediately came out and said in public, no, it is implausible that it could have come from the lab. But even 3 or 4 months after that, in the summer of 2020, these same scientists were saying privately, many of them, that they still had significant concern that the virus could have been manipulated in the lab. The other big lie that we learned about, where he was saying something privately that he said different publicly, was in private he was saying, it looks like the earliest cases did not come from the wet market. But then in public, for year after year, interview after interview, he was saying, looks like they came from the wet market. We just need to shut down the wet market. The reason this dishonesty is incredibly important is that if it came from the lab, he bears responsibility for having funded the lab. If it comes from the wet market, it more likely came from nature, and it's just an accident. So he actually has a conflict of interest here, that he's not really telling the truth, and he has a reason not to tell the truth because he's covering up the fact that if it came from the lab, he bears some responsibility for not having vetted this research. He was asked in the House cross-examination a year or two ago, did you ever examine the labs, or are you aware that anyone ever examined these labs? And he said he hadn't. So really, he does bear this responsibility. Tomorrow morning, we will vote on a contempt of Congress. This is the next step, and if it passes out of committee, I will then send it directly to the Department of Justice. At that point, the Department of Justice has a decision to make. If they want to pursue contempt charges for obstructing a congressional investigation, they go to a judge, and the judge will have to decide whether, if you've been offered or have been accepted a pardon, a complete pardon, a 10-year pardon over any disease, can you still plead the fifth saying, I don't want to incriminate myself? Now, I don't know if we win that before a judge or not, but if we were to win that before a judge, the judge could do one of two things. He could say to Anthony Fauci, okay, you're going to jail, or you get to testify. Then he would be sent back and actually have to testify. Some have said, why don't you give him immunity? The problem is, if I give him immunity, then will he tell the truth? The only thing stopping him from telling the truth is that he doesn't have immunity to lie. And I don't know why in the world I'd give him immunity to lie. So I'm not in favor of giving him immunity. He can admit to crimes. He can admit destroying records. He can admit to funding gain of function research and lying about it to Congress. But he just has to tell the truth. If I give him immunity, he's going to come in and tell us he didn't do any of those things, and then he gets off scot-free. So I can't guarantee that he'll be prosecuted, but I am doing everything possible to make sure that there is justice. I also want to do everything possible to make sure that the truth gets out. So if this ever happens again, one, we don't fund the research, but two, we don't let somebody with an inflated notion of themselves who calls themselves the science, we don't let someone like that take over our country, force upon us vaccinations, force upon us these rules that really were not based in science. And I want to make sure that none of that ever happens again. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks so much, Rand. And, here's a guy who lied to us time after time after time. And then he takes the fifth 111 times. And that is so clearly an insult to the American public. It's an insult to you. It's an insult to Congress. And, this is something that we need to keep in mind, that if you don't remember the past, you're destined to repeat it. You will repeat it. So we have to get reconciliation here. And we might not win in front of a federal judge, but we will win in the marketplace of ideas. We will have a moral victory here. And we will have the American people as the real judge of what happened here, so that we're sure, because of the work that you've been doing, that this never, ever happens again in this country. So thank you so much, Rand Paul.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Brian Hooker, and he's the Chief Scientific Officer of Children's Health Defense and an emeritus professor of biology at Simpson University. He's got 36 years of research behind him, and that includes contributions in biotechnology, environmental restoration, vaccine safety, epidemiology, and he also has a 28-year-old son with profound autism who is a speller, and we've covered spelling before. And he's the author of Vax Unvaxxed with Secretary Kennedy, and also has a new book coming out called The History of Vaccination. But he's just done spectacular work, and we're just really proud to have him here on the show with us today. Thank you, Dr. Hooker.
Well, thank you so much, Tony. It's an honor to be here. This is my first time at the Maha Action Media Hub. And I wanted to bring out one of the industry talking points just to remind everybody what the vaccine industry has purported. We always hear that vaccine industry injury or vaccine adverse events is 1 in a million. Well, that's not true. And we all know implicitly that that's not true because we hear so many anecdotes of vaccine injury. But the CDC actually funded a study that was done by Dr. Ross Lazarus, and it was a report was published in 2011. This study looked at 375,000 individuals in the Harvard Pilgrim medical system and covered over 1.4 million vaccines. That's 1.4 million needle sticks over a period of 3 years. In that time, they saw a rate of vaccine injury. This was serious vaccine adverse events of 1 in 38 needle sticks. Okay, so when you look at 1 in 38 needle sticks, you know that many of those individuals over that 3-year time period got more than one vaccine. And when you look at it at a per person basis, it's almost 1 in 10 individuals had sustained some type of serious vaccine injury. Now, when the COVID shot rolled around 11 years after the Lazarus study was published, we saw an explosion of vaccine injuries. We know that VAERS reporting, that's the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, is woefully underreported. And even the Lazarus report itself said that VAERS captured about 1% of all vaccine injuries. Yet, there have been over 1 million vaccine adverse events on the VAERS reporting system for the COVID shot alone. This eclipses all other vaccine injuries in the entire 35-year history of VAERS. Okay, so the COVID shot is vaccine injury on steroids. It has led to, in VAERS, 20,000 deaths. And we know that if that's woefully underreported, that there could be north of 1 million deaths due to the COVID shot in the United States alone. Okay, we're also hearing a lot about measles in the media. And one of the things that I really wanted to point out is that the MMR vaccine in its current form has never been appropriately safety tested. We know that because of the proceedings, the Ketam suit of Steve Kraling and Joanne Lokowski, that the levels of virus in the vaccine have been boosted, the mumps, the measles, and the rubella, to levels that have never been safety tested and could be as high as 4 to 5 times higher than that's been safety tested. So, we need to make sure that this information gets out. When you look at vaccines and autism and neurodevelopmental disorders, it has been a hull of censored science. The Wakefield study comes out in 1998. It just suggests that there might be a relationship between the MMR vaccine and regressive autism with a gastrointestinal phenotype. That's retracted. Tony Mawson did the first vax-unvax study that was published for one day in Frontiers in Public Health, PubMed Index Journal, before it was taken down. Then we have Lyons, Weyer, and Thomas, published in 2020, retracted in 2021. My own paper with Neil Miller is now showing an expression of concern from the journal Sage Open Medicine, again, another PubMed index. So censorship abounds. If you're going to talk about vaccines and vaccine injury, it is a contact sport. I am thankful for Secretary Kennedy because he is calling for openness and he's calling for transparency. And so, I couldn't be more thankful, but word needs to get out. Vaccines do cause injury. Vaccine injury is not rare. It is not facile. It is frequent, and it can be very, very serious. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. And, I just want to point out one thing, and this is not just about vaccines. This is about a bunch of products that are given to every child in America, and they have not been studied. So, even when Dana Bash at CNN says everything's been studied, it's been studied more than any other product in the country, that's just a lie. So you hear on national television something that isn't true, and that should disturb everybody. And they should take the word vaccine out of it. If that kind of lie was told about anything, about any product, you should be upset. You should want to know why that is, why we have the media, why we have the government, why we have liability protection for a group of companies that are making a bunch of products for billions of dollars profit when they haven't been well studied. And then I just wanted to say something else. And, this is in Gavin DeBecker's book, Forbidden Facts. And I just wanted to sort of say this right out loud. Let me just find the right page for it here. Let me see. Where's that? Hold on just 1 second. I'm going to read this one page because I just think it's such an important list of all the things that are contained in childhood vaccines. Things that probably listeners just don't know. So one of them is blood from the hearts of cow fetuses, human fetus DNA fragments, albumin from human blood plasma, oil extracted from shark livers, insect cell proteins, monkey kidney DNA particles, formaldehyde, polysorbate 80, potassium chloride, phenol, borax. Can you believe that? Borax. Monosodium glutamate, aluminum salts, thimerosal, still in some vaccines, and Triton X100, and I have no idea what that is. So I think that everybody has a right to know what's put into their children's bodies in any product, in any food, in any drug, in any vaccine. Thank you, Brian. Great to have you on.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have Nick Hulsher, and Nick is an epidemiologist and the administrator at the McCullough Foundation. And since 2024, he's contributed to the publication of 31 scientific studies. So I just want to kind of point out that the people who we've had on this show, these are very serious people who've done advanced research and have an advanced understanding of the topic. So, Nick, really researched COVID-19 vaccine injuries, childhood vaccine injuries, cancer treatments, SARS-CoV-2, H5N1, avian influenza, and the multifactorial determinants of autism spectrum disorders. So, he's really well versed in this, and it's great to have him on because you can't turn on your television and you can't read about these kinds of things in any newspaper in America. So thanks, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. And today I just want to talk about, I think, to focus on the COVID-19 injections. I think it's very important to understand what has occurred since 2021, given that over 70% of the population had received, and were basically, most of them were coerced or forced to take the COVID-19 injection. So we have published over 20 studies looking at particularly the COVID shots. I want to go through a few key points. The first key point is the cardiovascular effects. So we've basically identified and we've elucidated what's called COVID-19 vaccine-induced cardiac arrest. That is actually the final manifestation before death after myocarditis. We've demonstrated that myocarditis is not mild and transient. It's fatal and long-lasting, and in fact, permanent. It results in microscarring in the myocardium, actually multiple microscopic microscars. This is found at autopsy. It literally looks like somebody took a shotgun to the heart. I'm not even joking. You'll see the microscopic images. And then that leads to electrical conduction abnormalities. The mRNA gets into the heart, found at autopsy, as well as the spike protein. And so that leads to these electrical conduction abnormalities with the microscars. And that unfortunately leads to sudden death. That's why we saw lots of athletes dying suddenly, and we still do see people dying suddenly. And then we get to the cancers. This one's very concerning and very undeniable. We now have 4 independent data sets from 3 countries looking at this, 2 in the United States, 1 CDC Wonder database. This is the mortality records. There's been over 100,000 excess cancer deaths in the United States since 2021. The inflection point was right after the shots rolled out. And so that means over 100,000 more Americans died from cancer than normal right after the shots began. Then we have the SEER data set run by the National Cancer Institute. They just dropped the 2023 data. We see from 2021 to 2023. And again, this is the gold standard cancer surveillance system in the US. We saw from 2021 to 2023, new onset cancers among young Americans under 50 jumped up about 6%, and multiple major cancers increased in these young Americans. In fact, brain tumors were up 19%, colon cancers up 19%, stomach cancer, ovarian cancers, and breast cancers. Again, since 2021. Then we get to the 2 other countries, Italy and South Korea. They had 2 vaccinated versus unvaccinated studies looking at cancer outcomes. There was over 8.7 million people in both of these studies. And the COVID vaccinated suffered increased risks of 7 cancer types, including breast, thyroid, colorectal, prostate, gastric, lung cancer. So all of these cancers were higher in the vaccinated individuals. And we have to remember, cancer is the second leading cause of death worldwide. We don't want to be doing anything that's going to be accelerating that, making it even worse. 40% of Americans are projected to get cancer in their lifetime. And so this is just making that worse. And then we have the extreme blood clotting This is rarely talked about. A former Air Force Major Tom Haviland released, or actually published in a peer-reviewed journal, his 5-year-long survey of embalmers across the globe, across 5 countries. He actually found that 75% of all the embalmers, 800 embalmers were surveyed, 75% of them observed the long white fibrous clots in deceased individuals when they were embalming them. They never saw this before 2021. And they also, about 25% of the corpses had the clots in them. So that's another serious concern. Lastly, we have casualty estimates in the US. It ranges from 470,000 from Pfizer alone up to now 900,000 American deaths, not from COVID-19. And so we have a very large death toll estimate, unfortunately, from the coercion from these shots. And one more thing, Senator Ron Johnson a few months ago uncovered that the FDA covered all this up. They had all the safety signals in 2021. They told the scientists that uncovered them to cease and desist. They shut her down and they buried it while millions were getting the shots. And so, yeah, that's what I have to say today. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Nick. And, people in this country shouldn't be forced to take anything. They shouldn't be forced to put anything in their body. And if they can get a blood clot from it, if they can get cancer from it, if they can get heart problems from it, if they can suffer sudden death from it, how on earth can we force a human being to put that product in their body? So, we've gotten to the point now where maybe 5 years ago, 1% or 2% of the public was skeptical about vaccines. I've seen data showing that 150 million people in this country now want to have choice. They're not sure what to take or when to take it. They're real skeptics, and we should be skeptics about everything. So this is a great development, and you've been a big part of getting that information out there, because people should question authority, and questioning authority can literally save your life. So thank you so much, Nick. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Elizabeth Mumper, and she's practiced pediatrics for 46 years, nearly 5 decades. And she enjoys being a medical detective, and we need more medical detectives. And she has taken care of children with neurodevelopmental disorders and complex chronic illness. And she volunteers for all kinds of things. Children's Health Defense is one of them. And, just a great character and a great warrior. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome, Dr. Elizabeth Mumper. Having sound problems.
Thank you so much, Tony, and I'm really happy to be here. I got into this world in 1999 when I realized I gave a child autism with an MMR vaccine. This was far before I knew anything about the MMR concerns. That was my own lived experience. It was a 15-month-old Black infant, and now we know that the CDC did a study showing that Black infants were at higher risk of bad vaccine reactions, including autism, if they got the shots at younger ages. So that's why I no longer gave any MMR vaccines to my Black patients until they reached the age of 3. I established a new practice. I left academia and cared for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. And many years later, I went through my records with a medical student, and we discovered that 23% of my patients with autism, the parents reported an MMR regression. And 24% of the parents reported too many vaccines at once, perhaps given when the child was ill or already on antibiotics. So I think that deserves to be respected, and that we need to take them at their word and do the appropriate studies. There have now been, I think, 13 vax-unvax studies. My practice was one of them. All of them unequivocally show that the unvaccinated kids are healthier. There have been more than 600 NIH-funded studies since 2004, and 0 of them look at the vaxxed, unvaxxed, or the autism vaccine link. This has to change. The 11 studies that are widely quoted by the CDC are fatally flawed, and this is best articulated, I think, in J.B. Hanley's book, How to End the Autism Epidemic. I see an urgent need to train clinicians to take care of children who are vaccine injured, who have autism, who have complex chronic medical conditions, because the truth is that things like eczema, allergies, all kinds of behavioral problems, including ADHD, are associated with increasing number of vaccines. I actually did a study in my practice that replicated Andy Wakefield's work. I got 30 patients with autism and 30 patients that were controls. In my community pathologist, being blinded to their status, whether they had autism or not, found the same kinds of pathology, the same intestinal inflammation, and the same lymphoid nodular hyperplasia. But that paper could never get published because our European colleagues withdrew, and Dr. Wakefield was being persecuted in England for raising this issue in his seminal paper, where he merely reported what the parents had told him. So people talk about, we need a lot more research about the vaccine autism link. Honestly, I would like NIH to look at the research that we already have, collate what we already know, and use that information so that the rest of us can get to work helping these families have better quality of life and helping the children feel better. I think that it's clear now that the mantra that vaccines don't cause autism was not evidence-based. We have all kinds of plausible biologic mechanisms now. Things like aluminum leading to autoimmunity, leading to neuroinflammation. Things like vaccines being a significant stressor on the mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of the cell and the taxi dispatchers for the cell's jobs. We know that neuroinflammation and immune activation is probably the most central core pathology in autism. So rather than doing so many more studies that will take years and years to get to results, let's have our government start working on treatment and acknowledging what these parents have told us. They deserve us to honor their stories. Thank you for letting me tell the world about them.
Thank you so much. And, it's amazing when people change. And it's amazing to hear you say that you want to take responsibility for making errors in the past and that you're brave enough to come out and tell the truth now and to suffer whatever consequences there are. Clearly we have to follow the science, and clearly we all want to do that. They will call us anti-science, anti-vaccine, conspiracy theorists, all of those kinds of things. But if there's studies out there, like Dana Bash from CNN says, that show that all vaccines are safe and effective and that they've all been really tested well, then show us those. If they had them, they would show them, and they do not have them. And they've been yelling about this for years. They've been bombarding us with this 1984 sort of strategy of convincing us that something that probably is not safe, probably does cause autism, probably does cause allergies, probably does cause an incredible number of disorders. And they've been telling us that that just isn't true. So now they have to prove it to us. So the world has changed. And, we want the truth. And, like the line from that movie, A Few Good Men, we can handle the truth. So give us the truth now. Like you said, let's have the NIH, give us the truth. Let's have all of the studies. Let's have CNN show the studies they have, publish them on their website if they really have them. But we know they don't have them. So they've been saying that they have them, but they just can't describe them right on that show with Bobby Kennedy. But they could sure as hell post those on their website. And that's what we want. We want real science, real transparency. So, thank you, Dr. Mumper, for writing that incredible book for me. And, not for me, but for the world. And, coming on here and telling the truth, but being one of the really good doctors out there who's willing to change, willing to accept responsibility, and willing to be kind of a beacon for other doctors to change themselves. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
So next we have, Del Bigtree, and he's an Emmy Award-winning producer for his work on the Doctor series, and he produced the 2016 film Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe. And he's the founder and CEO of the Informed Consent Action Network. And I could go on and on and on for about a half an hour about all the incredible things that Del has done. But one of the things that he's really done is that he's had an incredibly loud voice in a world where there's been just a lack of dissent, stifled dissent, censorship, propaganda. And Del has just been an unstoppable force for truth. And, we had a disinformation dozen. So if we had a truth dozen, Del would be one of those. So Del, thanks for coming on, and thanks for everything that you've done. Hey, Del, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Tony, thank you for having me. As we focus on vaccines today, Politico put out a very interesting article talking about MAHA, and that there are actually a broader coalition of Americans consider themselves to, believe in MAHA values, though they will not identify as MAHA because of the political affiliation. And when they broke it down, they showed things like 20% of Kamala Harris voters said they believe in MAHA values. And so for that reason, I want to talk a little bit to those people that might be joining MAHA right now to watch this, that maybe aren't identifying it, trying to understand what this is about. We also see that the MAHA movement is very strong in food safety and things like that. It's upwards of around 60% of America, maybe even 70% in certain areas, want to see a better, cleaner food supply. And then the vaccine issues coming in around 40%, which is higher, as you point out, Tony. That used to be 2 or 3% were considered vaccine skeptics or questioning. Now we're moving in the 40% range. So to the people that are maybe haven't looked at vaccines, here's what I want to say. First of all, the argument that's been made against the so-called anti-vaxxers like Robert Kennedy Jr. is that he's not science, he's anti-science. We're all accused of those things. Of course, I come to this from a journalistic position, and they've all stood by the science. And they stood by Anthony Fauci, as he said, if you are questioning me or you have questions about MAHA and what we're doing, then you're questioning the science, essentially stating as the science. And I think it is not lost on anyone, I hope it's not, that last week what we saw was the science, as he called himself, taking the stand and pleading the fifth when it actually came down to delivering the truth in the final moment. So it's not Robert Kennedy Jr. that's had to back away from what he said. It's those that contended that what they were saying was science. We also must see now, we're no longer really seeing news articles saying that when Robert Kennedy Jr. or Del Bigtree or, Liz Mumper says there's never been a proper double-blind placebo-based trial for vaccines, which is the gold standard for vaccines. We used to hear the experts say that those have been done. That's not true. You are not reading that anymore because we've won that argument. New York Times, Washington Post, Politico, none of them were ever able to find a double-blind placebo-based trial. So now the line is reverted and it's regressing into, well, we did placebo trials on the original versions of the vaccines, but not the current ones. So we've won the current vaccines, and they're still lying about the other part, that there's never been, and my nonprofit has spent $28 million suing the government of the United States over these issues. We've proved unequivocally there's never been a placebo-based trial. So media media now sits in a very difficult place. It no longer gets to have a moral high ground on these conversations. They have no safety to rely on, so they are stuck with assumptions and dreams and faith, more like a religion than they have in science. Science has to plead the fifth now because it has no evidence, and that is what has changed in the world today. We are now standing where the ethical, principled, and science-based group are the Nick Holsters, the Liz Mumpers, the Peter McCulloughs, most published heart doctor in the world, Paul Merrick, most published ICU doctor in the world. We are talking the best of the best have now finally looked in this and come to the same conclusion. There is no safety science behind vaccines. And so that has changed this conversation forever. We are in a new place. As Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. That is the job now, is all we are down to is we have all been fooled. And now it's time for the truth. The genie's out of the bottle. Tony Fauci just popped their bubble permanently. I think the world will never be the same again. And anyone vaccinating now are going to go down in history as the last ones to actually get the message. I'm really hopeful for the future for our children. I think vaccines are on their way out. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks so much, Del. And, you've been great all along. You didn't shut up or back down during COVID. And I know for a fact that you're never going to back down. And I just love that. I dig that about you. And I think like all the other people on this show, you're on the right side of history. And I'm proud to be there with you. So thank you so much for the films you've done, for the organization you run, and for, coming on here again.
Let me just give a shout out. My current film is free at inconvenientstudy.com. It explains all of this. Thank you, Tony.
Definitely. It's a spectacular show. Please watch it. Next up, we have another real warrior. And, Mark Gordon is the president of Maha Institute, where he leads this, really great effort to advance health freedom, transparency, and holistic solutions to public health. And he's a technology business person, a founder of Tower Research Capital and LimeWire. And he's been just an incredible supporter of vaccine safety, of government transparency. And he's helped fund and lead all of these, really important projects to do research into vaccine injuries, greater accountability from public health agencies, and, policies that improve informed consent. So, and, Mark and I have been working together for a long time. Just so proud to be associated with him. Mark, thank you so much for everything you've been doing and for coming on this show.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be here. I appreciate all the work you're doing, and it's an honor to be associated with so many great guests. We are now experiencing in this country a massive epidemic of vaccine injury. And the scope of it is really much larger than most people understand, even people in the Maha movement. So we talk about the epidemic of chronic disease, which no one can deny. Everyone sees how huge this is and how the health of American children continues to get worse. What we don't say clearly, and what a lot of people don't understand, is that the clear majority of the chronic disease in this country is vaccine injuries. My best estimate is that 70% of all chronic disease in this country are vaccine injuries. So if you have a person with a neurological condition or an autoimmune condition, odds are that is a vaccine injury. So we're talking about autism, ADD, ADHD, allergies, eczema, tics, and a host of other conditions. And this is not rare at all. 40% of all children in this country will get a chronic condition from a vaccine injury that is severe enough that it requires a visit to the doctor. 40% of all kids, that's 1.4 million children injured by vaccines each year. The MAHA movement is focused on many, many issues. And we talk about improving nutrition and all sorts of stuff. The single thing that our country and our health system can do to most quickly improve the health of America's children is to eliminate the vaccine schedule and to stop the massive epidemic of vaccine injury that we see. The unvaccinated kids are much, much healthier than vaccinated kids. The vaccines, all of the stories about what they've done over time, it's myth and lie piled upon myth and lie. And we now, as other speakers on this show were saying, the studies have been done. We actually do know. They just won't be published. We have a very clear idea of the scale and scope of the harm. There have been over a dozen vaxxed-unvaxxed studies that clearly show vaccines cause autism, ADD, ADHD, all of these other conditions. And we want to see the medical establishment accept these facts. But the sad truth is that medical establishment is so deeply compromised, and the scope of the harm that has been done, you're talking about millions and millions and millions of Americans injured for life by vaccines. I don't think, again, there are rare doctors like Liz Mumford who can accept what they've done, who change their behavior. But I don't think you're going to be able to see most pediatricians be able to accept the scale of harm that they've done. So we've moved beyond a place where we can be helped and saved by our health system. It really is a political issue and a public awareness issue. And we need to, and we've been doing a great job, and shows like this are really helping get the word out so people can become aware. But vaccines are the number one health problem, or easily fixable health problem, that's facing America today. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to help get the word out. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks so much, Mark. And, let's just go through some of those, some of that data. So let's say, we know there's an epidemic of chronic disease in this country. And we've all heard that 70% of all children in the country suffer from at least one chronic disease. So if 70% of those people got that chronic disease through a vaccine, we then know that that's 49% of American children. And we know that there's something like 73 million kids in this country. So that is what? 36.5 million kids suffering a chronic disease. So that's an incredible allegation. Let's just look at that for 1 second. That is a allegation from a serious person who's done a lot of research, a lot of thinking about this, and we need to be able to investigate it. Because if the people in power, rightly or wrongly, through corruption, through greed, or just through human error, have gotten this wrong, we have to get to the bottom of it. This is the hill that we have to be willing to die on. So I think, the MAHA movement doesn't accept propaganda. We don't accept that because you say it's true, it's true. We need to investigate, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And we need gold standard science and total transparency. And if there was ever an issue that required that, this is it. So thanks, Mark. Thanks for being such an important voice in this movement and a backer of this movement. And I think we can get to the bottom of it, and we will not be silenced. We won't be censored anymore, and we won't believe the propaganda. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So, that's about it for today. But, this is a really important subject, and we can't stop. Vaccines are no different than any of these other issues, but the scope of the allegations the scope of the potential harm is so incredibly high that we can't say, oh, maybe this isn't a good polling issue. You know, we know that these companies, that these big pharmaceutical companies, we know that they are the most corrupt, the most criminal organizations in the country. And that's not just, that itself is not an allegation. That is an actual fact that they have been found guilty of criminal acts, not the people working there, because we have a system that allows people to not be criminals when a company is criminal. So the company commits crimes, but you cannot find any actual criminals. So let me just say that we in the MAHA movement will not accept this in any area, not in vaccines, not in drugs, not in pesticides, not in ultra-processed food. We want to get to the bottom of it. We want people to be able to make decisions for themselves because the people in positions of power have not been trustworthy. They have lied to us. They have censored us. They subjected us to propaganda. And that ends now. That ends when Bobby Kennedy, after 19 years of being censored, was given the opportunity from President Trump. And Bobby Kennedy said he prayed for 19 years for the opportunity to have the platform to tell the truth, to start to fight back against the chronic disease epidemic. And that's what's happening now. And we should celebrate that every single day. So we at MAHA, you know, we have power and we're going to use it. We have 275,000 subscribers on the MAHA report on Substack, and that's growing every day. Please help us grow that because we want that to get to millions. It's already one of the biggest Substacks out there. We have an incredible mailing list of more than 1 million people. We have MAHA films. We have MAHA books. We have MAHA big events. We have an incredible new event coming up September 29th in Washington. So join us. Be part of this movement. We can win. Don't go against each other. Let's get together and fight the people who really need to be fought. We know who those people are. We know what we have to do. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week at 4 p.m. on Wednesday.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
It is a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the
consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams into modestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable. Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams into modestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable.
Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Gonna learn the consequence of being incompetent. Mental health is confidence, dreams into modestness. I'm not here to save the day, that's for you to take away. I could play a million mind games, but instead I say something not illogical, something that is topical. Rub it on and watch it go, make yourself unstoppable. Dreams are irresponsible, but they're always possible. If you just believe, you could be so remarkable.
Thoughts in my head, a collage and they spread. I'll be great one day, going off of my meds. No, I'm not giving up, no, I'm not giving in. I will make it to the top, taking off in the wind. I gotta make it, I'm saving every day to taste it. I'm patient, but my mind, it can hardly take it. I'm chasing a dream that I've had for several ages. A vacant, modern kingdom for the taking.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate
don't take shit, I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.